Our next speaker, that is Dr. Krishnan Gireesh. He is the founder and the chairman of MEP. His topic is just listening.
So good evening, friends. First of all, let me thank the organizers for giving this opportunity to connect myself with the galaxy of scholars, researchers, and academicians. So I'm just going to speak a bit on a particular innovative counseling paradigm, because the very purpose of this summit, I suppose, is innovation in psychology. So I thought I will select this one and go accordingly. So this is what I'm going to present is an innovative approach in counseling, which should be of much relevance as far as our Indian community is concerned. And let me just go for the slide. Yeah, so the very headline says that this is just listening. Number one, number two, counseling beyond words. Usually, because the moment when we start talking about counseling, we tend to make it very complex with so much of theories and unconscious, sometimes cognitivisms and a lot of underpinning theoretical foundation. So I just made it as so simple, innovative method, just listening. I will explain why I said it so. And another important change, what probably is supposed here, is that usually the moment when we think of counseling, we think about an executive room wherein a counselor, a psychologist sits in an armchair, and wherein the counselee or the client is given a kind of a handicapped four-legged chair, which is very simple, and there is no comparison between the chair in which the person sits and so in fact those kinds of an ambience itself is perhaps it will distance the common man away from the so-called counselor or psychologist. So here actually counseling takes place in an open place which is beyond the four walls of any such executive rooms, and it is mostly on just listening. Now, this particular project has been put forth by an NGO by name MAP, Mental Health Action by People. Currently, we have got three important projects in action. Number one is Resilient Youth. I suppose we are the first people to develop a resilient, what is called a building kit for Indian youth. The process is already in the pipeline. Second one is we have started again a crisis text line, which again is a new thing as far as India is concerned, because we have got so many hotline calling system, but text line is the first time in India. Now, the third thing is just listening. That's what we are going to discuss right now. So, what is the context that why this just listening is very important as far as the present context is concerned? We all know that there is something called the National Mental Health Survey, which happened in 2015, 2016, and the survey very clearly regards and gives us an idea that about 150 million Indians they are in need of mental health care. At the same time, only 30 million people really get their care. So you can just imagine the gap between the need and at the same time one side, other side the service delivery that takes place. So there is a huge gap between the need felt in Indian community, but the care what is being offered to the needy person. Second aspect is the underperformance of several components in mental health system is very evident. Especially, in fact, I'm surprised to see that even no mention about counseling has been made in this report. So that itself tells, where is our mental health system as far as care delivery is concerned. And there is an extreme shortage of mental health professionals. Another survey study clearly shows, as reported in 2014, it was as low as 1 in 10,000. So this is the present human resource scenario and the demands or needs in our community. Now, when the context continues, every year, as you all know, that about 8 lakh people die by suicide globally. Out of this 8 lakh, 17% of share goes from Indians. So Indian residents commit 1 lakh and 35 people out of these 8 lakhs of the annual or the global annual suicide rate. Now, India has the highest number of persons with depression according to WHO. Often, India is referred as depressed country, unfortunately, but it is a fact. Now, 6.5% of Indian population suffers from serious mental disorders, as the study has very clearly said. here it clearly shows that there exists a real gap between the issues, the mental health needs, at the same time, whatever services that we may able to provide so far. Now, now coming to a specific component that can be given as a service for the needs of the the mental health issues, that counseling. When you look at the past of the counseling in India, we had some sacred duty of elders once it was considered. Like for example, Mada Pita Guru Deva. This very concept itself very clearly tells us that Mada Pita Guru, they are supposed to be like the advice givers, and some kind of advice giving was taking place. You cannot call it as real counseling, but I would say informal counseling was taking place in India, a time which was perhaps in a social structure which is not like what at present we have. What at present we are in a digital world. At present we are in a neoliberal economy. This is the story much earlier. And the one model which probably many of us used was Bhagavad Gita model. You all know it. And the formal counseling system started by 1936 Mysore University, which was very strongly be taken up by Calcutta University, and following by Patna University, Benares Universities, and NCRT also played a major role in propagating the importance of counseling, especially the report. And eminent centers like eminent Center of Psychiatry, those are the training institute for the mental health professionals, also played its role in pushing the counseling into the mainstream. But the major catalyst in this counseling scenario has been education institutions and mental health promotion. HIV/AIDS management, in fact, counseling has become very important, especially as you know that pre-testing counseling is very important, and also impact reduction counseling also has become very important, prominent. So all that has indirectly contributed to the growth and development of counseling in Indian scenario. Along with that, the disaster management, which of course plays a very important role, which is very important, and counseling plays there. Even the WHO module of first aids, what talks about in terms of look, listen, and link. Again, you can understand the important counseling in that module. And now in COVID-19, helplines are rampant, and it's so huge in number. So that again talks about counseling. But when you really conduct a survey as far as Indian scenario is concerned, mostly we get digital platforms with fancy names, but in fact we do not know exactly what actually happening. Are they all following a same paradigm, and how it works, and nobody knows. So that is the thing. So we have had a very a very long past, but I would say the history is very short, and the current scenario is not in black and white. It's very bad. Now, this again, I'm talking about the current scenario continuing. So, as far as Indianization of counseling is concerned, we had certain bold attempts, what is known as Gita therapy, the concept which was put forth by one psychiatrist who is no more, Dr. Vendobrabu from Madurai. And then we had a Guru Chela therapy also, which was also tried, attempted, and all, but these concepts have not lived much. It came by 70s, but it perhaps died by 80s, and it is not much practiced thereafter. So the study by Arul Mani, which says that very little emerged in terms of Indian models of counseling as far as the literature and practice of counseling is concerned in context. Now, less than 10% of sample, when they conduct a study in 12 different Indian regions, they found that only less than 10% of the total sample who are in need of counseling really get it. That means there's a dearth of services for a huge majority. I would say about 90% of the people who should be given counseling, they do not, unfortunately, they do not get counseling. And another study by NAD also, again, emphasizes the same point, it underlines the same point. Another thing is that there is a lot of ambiguity role in counseling. For example, actually, what is actually one supposed to? He's not like a Ravan Avatar. He cannot play all the different roles. But sometimes a person having a crisis refer to a counselor. You can range from referring a person with a personal conflict to a schizophrenia. So actually, where does the counselor should be? What exactly is the role? So there is a lot of role ambiguity, as we are lacking a kind of specific paradigm as an accepted paradigm for the Indian context. So this is actually the context in which this particular technique of counseling, the paradigm of counseling, that just listening gets a new diametric, gets a new meaning. Now, when you look at just listening, it has got its own story, it has got its own philosophy. It's not without its own philosophy. See, the first point is that instead of labeling a person, our fellow being, as a patient, or trying to find out a particular diagnostic label with him, like depressed, schizophrenic, and all. The particular system, the model of just listening, like to love it, look at that. There is a lot of social toxicity because the world where we live, perhaps the narratives where we are supposed to live, the major dominant narratives wherein you are supposed to be merged in, perhaps makes you, a little more stressed, or you can say anxious, or you can say maybe to a breakdown point. So the society has got a major role. It cannot just put the onus of responsibility to the shoulder of the poor bipedals, but rather the societal role has to be acknowledged, accepted. Many times, that society has got this toxic, impact on the poor, faceless, voiceless fellow beings in the remote villages as well. At the same time, just listening, counseling paradigm do emphasize the role of precarity. Because when I talk this to precarity, usually we may think that precarity means something shaky, something uncertain, which is very insecure, maybe in terms of salary and maybe in terms of job. But precarity, as has been articulated in the cultural anthropology, which has got a different meaning. Precarity means I am here only because of you. I'm sure. If I'm sitting here, if I'm talking to you in this platform, only because of you about 100 my friends over here. So this kind of a connectivity is over there. So you cannot say that, you cannot think of a Rumpelstiltskin phenomenon. What I mean is that somebody is being looked at up and somebody is being treated as a guru. So we are all fellow beings over here. So each one is needed for another person. As this picture, tells, when there is a societal, social toxicity, all are connected and each one has to support the other to move on. So that is the story, that is the philosophy what has been articulated by just listening, counseling or paradigm. And just listening, this particular model can be expressed anywhere. You don't need a particular, I would say, very sophisticated office. You don't need an executive chair. You don't need an AC, electric connectivity, nothing of that sort. It can happen somewhere, maybe in front yard of your house, maybe in a shady place nearby your small lake, maybe nearby a beach. Only thing is that you should have a compassion, certain therapeutic ingredients to get connected to the fellow being who may have some stories to be told to you. And second, another important aspect that presumes over this just listening paradigm is that you need to validate the narrator. What I mean by narrator, the narrator means the client, but we don't want to use the term client. Client means as if you get some benefit out of that. So narrator means the client. So the person who comes to you, the person who wants to get connected to you. So when a fellow being with so much of burden, so much of stress or angst is approaching you, you need to validate. Why you need to validate? Usually nowadays we know that we are living in a environment, in a society which is highly validating as far as the individual feelings the person surrounds are concerned. So let us validate the person. When he cries, when he shakes, when he is very anxious, let us accept and respect why he feels so. And as far as this just listening counseling is concerned, we don't have any specific goal. So when I say that there is no goal, you may wonder, then what does this mean? This is something very crazy. It's not like that. When you talk in terms of the classical counseling models like psychoanalysis, we always talk in terms of integration of three arms of the personality, like ego, superego, or trying to move from conscious through pre-conscious to unconscious and analyze the dreams and trying to find out what is actually implicit, and all those kinds of funny things are there. But then this particular system doesn't presumes that such a underneath or underlying goal has to be searched out and has to be corrected so that the person is helped out. Don't believe in it. But just counseling goes by the principle that precarity. See, I am here because of you. There is a mutual connectivity, connectedness. That's how it works. Now, again, this is not without a theory. Primarily, this is based on four theoretical underpinnings. Number one is the basic concept of law and motion. I'll explain more about motion in my coming slides, and he talks about being with people. I'll explain what exactly. Of course, the other person, Viktor Frankl, I'm sure I'm being with the psychology community. You are all must be familiar with Viktor Frankl, mutual learners on a journey. Will explain ontology goes without saying, of course, Then it's bit about Buddhism also. So I'll just explain. These are the four basic, theoretical pillars that has helped to come out with this just counseling paradigm. So this Lauren Mosher, he was a psychiatrist in US. He was mostly in California. As you can read, this one, he was a clinical professor of psychiatry and founder of Sotoria Institute of Health and founder of Schizophrenia Bulletin, which is very famous. And he was with the National Institute of Mental Health. He was the director of schizophrenia. What he said is that, when you're trying to connect to your client, your patient, your fellow being, be with the people around. Not that you should be into the person, you know. Many a times you look at a psychiatrist, a clinical psychologist, we would like to prescribe certain things. We would like to advise. We are intruding into the territory of the subjective thought process of the person concerned. We are trying to restructure the cognition. All that is happening as if it is our authority. We can do like that. So, but Lauren Mosher felt that after the practice about 30 years, that we felt that there is no point in trying to intrude, trying to dash, to jam, and then move inside the subjective boundaries of the person. But we can be just being with the person, not to jump inside the person and try to restructure the whole concept of his entity. And based on this insight, he, developed. There is a kind of hospital. It cannot be called as hospital. But I would say it's a stay home. It's called the Soteria. So Soteria, actually, what is meant is that it is, very people-friendly building structures with that kinds of ambience, where Moshe has found that, that your drug may be your problem, because he has conducted lots of interesting studies. You must read. If you have doubts, you should Google, I would say. And the studies very clearly said that you take two sample size, both are very schizophrenic, acute schizophrenia, young people. One, you just give a traditional treatment of neuroleptic medication, okay? And second, what you can do is that you just take away all the medications and you just put them in this Sotoria. That's a very, people-friendly architect built house, wherein there is a psychosocial milieu, which is highly supportive. People are never treated as if schizophrenics or as aliens, but we are all being with them. The resident or the psychologist are very much being with them, not into them. And when such a study has been conducted, Lauren Mosher found with all the empirical structures of study that there is a wonderful recovery rate of the so-called schizophrenic with this Sotoria, where no neuroleptic drug was given, comparing with the conventional method of giving antipsychotic medications. That is the reason what made him to write the book, Your Drug May Be Your Problem. See, I'm not talking anti-psychiatry. I'm just trying to expose the concept of Lauren Mosher. But from Lauren Mosher's concept, what we have taken is the basic concept of being with the people, not being into the subjective space of the people. That's very important about this man. Now, Viktor Frankl, of course, you all know that he again was a neurologist who has moved into psychiatry. And during the Nazi regime, Hitler, he was into the concentration camps. All his relatives were murdered in front of him. He somehow managed to escape. And after that, he started thinking in a different way that has led to the very concept of logotherapy. Logo, as you all know, it's very meaning, and logotherapy means man's search for meaning. And he was talking about a particular concept called mutual learners in a journey. What exactly is meant is, we don't presume that the clinician, the psychologist, the psychiatrist, or counselor is sitting at a higher level, as if because we have been trained in some theories, we have been trained in certain skills, so we are sitting in a sanctorium, and the poor client who is considered as a bipedal, mortal bipedal, who just comes to you, and you are delivering something, some certain services, wherein he is being helped. No such thing at all. What would happen in this just listening is that, when a person comes to you, when he is trying to get connected to you, you also just being a fellow being with him, what happens essentially is there is a mutual learning. So in that sense, therapy or counseling is a journey wherein you, along with your fellow being, the narrator, moves in the same direction without dichotomizing and pushing him into the with the level of patient. You acting as a doctor. Doctor means a person who knows so many things. Scholar. So that is the basic concept put forth by Frankel. So this aspect of mutual learners in the journey also being incorporated into the thought process of this particular paradigm. Just listen. Now, Carl Rogers, it goes without saying, you all know that the important component what has been put forth by Rogers, of course, is congruity. What exactly mean by congruity is means that uh, you need to be congruous because there are two selves: your actual self and ideal self. When there is a conflict within, otherwise I say when you are not very genuine, when you are kind of a fake mask, when you're wearing a mask, you cannot be a real therapist. So congruity means you should be congruent within yourself. You should be transparent. You should not have a mask, and you should accept yourself as a fragile human being, just like as your client or your fellow being. And you must try to connect with your person with the unconditional positive regard. It is many times very easy to preach, but I would say exceptionally very difficult to practice, because many times our attitude and connectivity towards a fellow being will be dictated by our own what is called perceptions, and sometimes our own biases, so many biases, prejudices, etc., etc. But you must try to come out of all these prejudices, biases, and perceptions, and should try to connect with each and every fellow beings without judging them. So you should be non-judgmental, and you must try to have an accurate empathy. The concept of accurate empathy is slightly different from empathy, wherein you are trying to mentalizing and you are trying to connect the emotional component of the fellow being. And you should treat that every individual is very unique. You cannot think that the X or Y should be carbon copy of you. Absolutely impossible. So with that concept that you have to move on. So these are the some of the major thought process what Rogers spelled out, and these all have been accepted into the paradigm called just listening. Now, from Indian philosophy, it has been taken is Buddhist thought, right? Right understanding is very important. That has been accepted and should be non-intentional, has been accepted. Then, usually, many of us have got a feeling that there is some problem. There is some problem. So, in therapy, in counseling, we are always into a search to find out the problem. Let me find out the problem. Or the client may come and ask you, sir, please tell me what's my problem. So here we are not to fix it, we are not to search and find out the problem. Because the moment you are getting engrossed with finding out the problem, when you are in a kind of inquiry process, what would happen is that there is a disconnect happening between yourself and the person who sits with you as a fellow being, as a what do you call as a narrator. So you trying to keep away this kind of a fixed culture to shooting trouble. Rather, being the journey with the person is very important. So this concept has been taken from Buddhistic thought. Now, this process of just listening is very simple that you all can do. It's very simple. What happens is that two people sitting together, you can stand out, and it's not much that you have to sit. And one person is a narrator, and other person is the listener. Naturally, in other ways, in our traditional concept, I would say the listener is the therapist and the narrator is the patient or client. Now we don't use the word. And what is the aim? The aim is to demonstrate the value of connection through listening and being heard. So when there is, when you are totally into that, usually, but nowadays we are not into that. When you are trying to listen, you yourself will understand that many images are coming and it's bombarding into you. You are kind of lost. Many times you have to pretend in front of the client. You are about to yarn, but you are eating up the tendency to yarn, and you are doing all those kinds of things. So to just keep all those kinds of things away, be yourself, be a naked human being, without the mask. And the process of deep listening, we hear both ourselves as well as other person. Exactly that is what's happening. Sometimes other person could be your echo, and you may hear yourself and other person. And when gradually what would happen is that there is a trust develops between you two, and can honor the trust. In fact, that itself is the therapeutic process. That itself is therapeutic. Why I said is so, there have been lots of studies conducted, again, I would say, by Arumul et al. And the studies very clearly tells you that 30% of therapeutic impact or outcome of counseling is due to the very relationship that is being built. And 40% of rest of the therapeutic impact, again, is due to extra therapeutic factors. So 70 goes already, Only the rest of the 30% is something to do with your particular technique that you apply. So this is something very important. Now, I already said, so it doesn't practice a fixed culture, and active listening is emphasized. You must also have accurate empathy. Unconditional and non-judgmental attitude is very important and should keep an open position. When I said open position, Buddha position. Like, maybe if you look at explicitly, my hands are like this. I'm willing to accept without any barriers, blocks, and bias. So it's not only externally like this, my hands are like this one open, but internally my attitude should also be like that. I'm willing here to accept you. And you must have an undivided focus. You should not be divided within you. That's something very important. And what is the need of this just listening is that it's a huge need for mental health services to promotion of mental health and prevention of disorders. But at the same time, acute shortage of mental health workers, as I've already been told, there is no labeling effect and stigma as far as this particular technique or paradigm is concerned. One pilot study has been already conducted by the last year, August month and August, September and all in Trivandrum. In a small village called Kudali, we took about 12 barefoot counselors and whom they have accepted training, and about 90 people have been covered. They are subjectively, there was a qualitative research was conducted, and there was a subjective report of maximum satisfaction from these people. Now, by this coming 10th of October 2020, as you all know, it's a World Mental Health Day. We would like to launch this particular just listening counseling throughout India. That's why I said it's pan-India. I welcome anybody, whoever is interested can join hands with us. We will be giving you free training on just listening. And let's try to connect the whole India and try to do the best for this one. So, so this is about our NGO, that is MAP, Mental Health Action by People. If anybody is interested, can connect us, and you are all most welcome for that. With that, let me thank you. If you have got any questions or queries or criticisms and comments, most welcome. I shall be extremely happy to take that. And with that, let me conclude. And now it's open to you, please.
Thank you so much, sir, for enlightening us with so much info about the Indian counseling. So you guide us about the precarity. What precarity is, who connects with you. That is, and there is, I am here only because of you is the precarity. And you guide us about the validate the narrator and many more things, that is social toxicity. There is no good. And one else that Carl Rogers said that unconditional positivity regards, and there is a be creative, sensitive, and accurate, non-judgmental in the relationship. We have to do these things in our day-to-day life so that we can control in ourselves, so that we can love everybody unconditionally without anything that will be positive in our life. So thank you so much, sir, about this much of guidance. Thanks a lot, sir.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
So now I